ocean is alive. Deep waters shield secret worlds, and we imagine the unknown in tall tales and myth. But we often get the facts wrong, and of all creatures in the sea, sharks are perhaps the most misunderstood. Sharks are the villains in most ocean tall tales, and it's easy to buy into the fear. But the truth is that sharks, for the most part, are completely uninterested in us, even scared of us. It's a rare experience for a diver to see one underwater because sharks are, by nature, shy and cautious. The very few shark attacks that do occur are often instances where a shark mistakes a swimmer for its usual prey, like a sea turtle. Sharks just don't want to be near people, and the statistics support this. In 2009, people swam in the ocean over 7 billion times. Out of those 7 billion, there were only 60 recorded attacks worldwide. Out of those attacks, only 5 people died. Imagine 5 grains of sand from an entire beach. By contrast, an estimated 24,000 people die from lightning every year. The Jaws movies and other tall tales not only give sharks a bad name, they miss the most important point. Sharks are vital to nearly every marine ecosystem. They naturally patrol the open ocean, the reefs rising from the seafloor, and even the mangrove forests in the shallows. Everywhere sharks are found, they are absolutely necessary. These are not the monsters of movies, but they are the masters of the reef, and they seem to know it. Seeing a shark underwater is to truly witness nature at its most awe-inspiring. Marine ecosystems are extremely complex. Not even the world's best scientists completely understand how they work. But we do know that sharks are critical to the health of most marine systems. They help maintain the intricate dynamic balance that keeps the ocean healthy. If sharks are removed, the consequences can be severe and unpredictable. It is easier to understand by picturing a small town. As in any community, everyone plays an important role, and if anyone were to stop doing his or her job, it could set off a cascade of consequences, like a line of falling dominoes. For example, imagine if people stopped repairing boats. Eventually, the boats would break down, fishermen wouldn't be able to bring in enough fish, and the town could go hungry. The simple fact is, in a human community, we all depend on each other to do our jobs, and the very fabric of our society would tear if we didn't. An ecosystem is no different. Any disruption, a single falling domino, will topple other dominoes in its path. Scientists call these lines of falling dominoes trophic cascades, and they're very hard to predict. For instance, researchers in the Northwest Hawaiian Islands found a critical connection between tiger sharks, seabirds, and 2 important species of fish, tuna and jacks. With fewer tiger sharks, there were fewer tuna and jacks. With more tiger sharks, there were more tuna and jacks. But why? As it turns out, young jacks and tuna seek shelter near the shores of islands, and a variety of seabirds target the juvenile fish as a principal food source. Tiger sharks, on the other hand, eat seabirds. In undisturbed areas, these species achieve a dynamic balance, with the tiger sharks keeping the number of seabirds in check. But in areas where tiger sharks were removed, seabird populations increased and consumed more young fish, leading to a crash in local stocks of tuna and jacks. The disappearance of sharks started another chain of falling dominoes in the Caribbean. where sharks tend to feed on groupers. On reefs where sharks disappeared, groupers were initially much more plentiful, which might sound like a blessing for fishermen. But the imbalance actually had unforeseen and devastating consequences. The groupers, with fast metabolisms and ravenous appetites, preyed heavily upon parrotfish and other fish species that eat algae. With these fish gone, the algae spread unchecked, and the ancient reef communities suffocated and died. With their reef gone, populations of all fish suffered, including the groupers. As it is in the human community, each creature in the ocean community plays an essential role. Diversity is absolutely necessary to safeguarding the health of our oceans. Sharks regulate all and help maintain that balance. Though we may never understand all the roles sharks play, the indisputable fact is that these animals are critically important, and when they're removed, the dominoes start to fall. It may be obvious by now that the last dominoes in a trophic cascade are people. We are all intimately connected to these ecosystems, and their health reflects directly back on us. A healthy ocean brings in tourists and supports sustainable fishing. But we can easily damage the system that sustains us. In truth, our community is not just a collection of people. It includes all of the creatures in the ocean, in the air, and on land. We must recognize that we rely on this extended community and protect it. This is our job, and every other member of the community depends on us to do it well. And only if we do it well will fishermen continue to fill their boats. The news from our oceans is not good. It is sometimes hard to hear, but we must listen if we are to learn from our mistakes. Throughout the oceans, destructive fishing practices have been consuming everything in their path, like a forest fire without smoke. One by one, fisheries around the world have been collapsing, unable to withstand the intense pressure. In the past 3 decades, fueled by increasing demand for shark fin soup in Asia, sharks have become the victims of this blaze. Sharks are not ordinary fish. In contrast to popular commercial fish species, they grow slowly, taking many years to reach sexual maturity, and then produce relatively few young. This makes them extraordinarily vulnerable to fishing. Even smaller species of sharks, once thought to be less vulnerable, have special biological traits. One small shark, called the spiny dogfish, carries her pups for almost 2 years, the longest known gestation period of any vertebrate. Yet we have treated sharks as if they were ordinary fish, fishing them just as aggressively as less vulnerable species. And we have had an extreme impact on global populations. Because of their biological vulnerability, even modest catches can result in significant declines in shark populations. But driven by escalating demand for shark products, sharks have been targeted relentlessly by industrial fishing fleets across the globe. And as a result, their populations have not merely declined, they have plummeted. Once common throughout the Mediterranean, the short-fin mako is now classified as critically endangered. Populations of hammerhead sharks in the northwest Atlantic have been ravaged, both directly and incidentally. Silky sharks in the Gulf of Mexico have become the victims of unchecked industrial longlining. Sandbar sharks in the northwest Pacific have been nearly wiped out by intense longlining. The oceanic whitetip, already critically endangered in the North Atlantic, is nearly gone from the central Pacific. Sand tiger shark populations in Australia have declined by over half as a result of a deep-water trawling industry. The non-aggressive whale shark was relentlessly hunted off the coast of Taiwan in the 1980s and 1990s. Even the great hammerhead shark, regal nomad of the tropical seas from the South Indian Ocean to the coast of Africa, has suffered catastrophic losses. But these stories barely scratch the surface. Hundreds of studies have documented severe declines in regional shark populations. Species by species, region by region, this story is repeating itself again and again. Sharks are no match for long lines, gill nets, and the seemingly insatiable demand for shark fin soup. Worldwide, we are catching up to 200,000 sharks per day, an estimated 73 million sharks each and every year. As a result, 3/4 of oceanic pelagic sharks and rays, and 30% of all sharks and rays are threatened or near threatened with extinction. A fire is raging in our oceans, but we don't know it because we can't see the smoke. And just as fire can wipe out entire villages, this fire threatens to consume and destroy a delicate balance in the oceans that has evolved over 400 million years. But the fate of sharks is not sealed. The tide is changing, and shark conservation is starting in country after country. In September of 2009, the Pacific island nation of Palau, in an unprecedented move, declared all of its waters a shark sanctuary. The president of Palau went one step further. On the floor of the United Nations General Assembly, he announced the shark sanctuary and challenged the rest of the world to follow suit. In February 2010, Honduras declared a moratorium on shark fishing in all of its waters. In March of 2010, the Indian Ocean island state of the Maldives joined the movement, declaring Maldivian waters a shark sanctuary. In the United States, a major loophole that enabled shark finning vessels to bypass laws intended to stop the shark fin trade was finally closed with passage of the Shark Conservation Act of 2010. And in June of 2010, the governor of Hawaii signed into law the Shark Fin Prohibition Act, outlawing the possession, sale, and trade of shark fins. These first steps have sent a wave of inspiration across the ocean. In December of 2010, school children in the Commonwealth of the Northern Marianas Islands successfully petitioned their governor, and 1 month later, the Northern Marianas became the second place in the world to ban the shark fin trade. A movement had begun. Students in neighboring Guam rallied to the cause, successfully lobbying their government to enact a shark fin ban. In June 2011, the president of Honduras further strengthened 2010 protections and declared the waters of Honduras a shark sanctuary. And in July 2011, Bahamians protected sharks throughout Bahamian waters. But it didn't stop there. This resounding chorus of voices is continuing to grow into new sanctuaries, fin trade bans, and other important legislation. Encouraged by key environmental organizations, inspired by impassioned children, and supported by communities that have decided to take a stand, people are repainting the political seascape, answering the call to conserve sharks and safeguarding the future of our oceans. Since 2009, the PEW Environment Group has worked closely with scientists, experts, and local organizations to help establish national shark sanctuaries that protect shark populations around the world. PEW also works through the United Nations to secure global commitments, collaborates with fisheries management bodies, and supports campaigns for other important shark legislation. These measures are desperately needed to save shark populations, protect marine ecosystems as a whole, and ultimately protect the human communities that depend on the ocean. We all have a stake in these issues. Please join us in creating the solutions.